that John Lewis started. And that's not really a surprise because Lewis himself realized that there was a long way to go. He remembered the time that at the end of the Pettus Bridge March and the march which followed it into Montgomery, there were declarations that segregation was all over in America. Well, of course, in spite of the progress that Jamal mentioned, there's still ways to go. And Lewis continued that struggle for all his life. He told me once, he said, I think it's important for those not even born to know what happened, to know the price that was paid. And he didn't preach religion out loud, but he lived it. He lived it through the rest of his life. And we certainly saw that in the remembrance today, Nora.
And it was, Bill, I'm trying to think of occasions, since you've covered so many presidents in your career, to see three former presidents together, and of course a letter read by former President Jimmy Carter, who could not be here, to see all of them gather in person, except for President Carter during a pandemic. Extraordinary to have that gathering.
It certainly is. It doesn't happen very much in our history. It happens usually only when there is a major celebration or a major funeral. But it showed today how both the presidents of both parties regarded John Lewis as a man of integrity and somewhat a seeker of justice.
Well said, Bill. And as was pointed out, that President George W. Bush signing into law the Voting Rights Act as well. I want to bring in Chief Congressional Correspondent Nancy Cordes, who joins us from Capitol Hill. And Nancy, as was mentioned, John Lewis was known as the conscience of the Congress. And you heard the many mentions today, not only to honor John Lewis's legacy by going out to vote, but also the calls to rename the Voting Rights Act that is up in the House and has been installed in the Senate after John Lewis.
Right, but many Democrats feel, Nora, that that should just be the first step. And while that is a fitting tribute, a fitting honor to rename the bill after him, what would really cement his legacy, they say, would be to pass the bill. It has already passed the House. It has gone nowhere in the Republican-led Senate. And even over the past week, as John Lewis has been so much in the news, his accomplishments, his legacy, we have not gotten any indication that the Senate might take up that bill anytime soon. Broadly, what it would do is restore some of the protections that were stripped away by a Supreme Court ruling a few years ago that enabled some states to put new restrictions in place on voting, whether it's voting registration, early voting, that kind of thing. So it's something that John Lewis was very passionate about, very involved in the crafting of that bill, and something he dearly wanted to see passed. And so that's why you heard not just Nancy Pelosi, but former President Barack Obama mention it today and argue that perhaps the filibuster itself in the U.S. Senate, this grand tradition in the U.S. Senate, should be stripped away if that's what it takes eventually to get that law passed.
Yeah, and forgive me if you mentioned this, Obama calling it a relic of the Jim Crow era, the filibuster.
Does in the Senate is it enables you to block legislation because you need to pass a 60-vote threshold. If you got rid of the filibuster, you could pass bills with 51 votes, a simple majority, which is great when you're in the majority, not so great when you're in the minority. It basically strips away a lot of your power, makes the Senate look a lot more like the House. And so that's why Democrats and Republicans alike have been afraid to touch it. They worry that it would change the character of the Senate, but you have a lot of people like the former president. This is not the first time he's made this argument that perhaps you need to do away with the filibuster in order to make progress.
Nancy, I want to show everyone, just as we're watching the hearse about to leave here, Ebenezer Church, I want to show everyone the picture when John Lewis left Washington and the double rainbow that appeared over Capitol Hill. This incredible picture that Speaker Nancy Pelosi mentioned today, as if